Hey, welcome back to another Take 5. So, today in this video, I'm going to show you a little bit about the blueprints and just started on that. So, if you're unfamiliar with blueprints, they're basically a reflection of the C++ code, and all the nodes that you see in Blueprint are basically like functions and different things that would actually be that are actually written in code. They're just it's like a visual representation of it. Um, when you want to make a blueprint from the editor, you're going to come down here and you're going to basically do a blueprint class. And you can pick a lot of different options here, but things like actors are going to go in the world. The pawn is going to be something that you would use for a character, or something that you're going to need to control. The pawn is something that you control. The character is a version of the pawn. The character's been built by Epic, with more logic. So it's like an improvement. It's a child of the pawn, and it's an improvement on it. So it has specific characteristics. And then there's the player controller that you're going to need to use for every character. In order to move the pawn or anything like that, you have to have a player controller. That's what does all the input. When when you have a pawn, you can also put input on the pawn itself, but you wouldn't be able to put input on an actor specifically, um, unless if you were telling it to do that specifically. So, and then there's things like game modes, which do some other stuff. A lot of these I probably would have to go over in more depth videos. Actor components. Components are things that an actor can have, which is what I'm going to explain here in a second. So let me go ahead and just pick an actor, and then we're going to open this actor just to show you. The actor is going to look like this. It's going to have hardly anything up here except for its default root, which is just the empty actor itself. And this is the components section. So this is where all of your components would be added if you wanted to add some static meshes, some lights, some collision boxes, cameras, everything that you can think of that needs to be attached to this actor and connected to it is going to go right here, and it's going to be picked from this component list right here. Then we have different things like the graph itself. And the graph I'm just going to pull up right now. The graph is over here on this tab. You've got the graph is going to be always like this when you first start one. It's going to have an event begin play, an event begin overlap, and a tick. The tick is the frame is basically like an update for like Unity people. Um, these can be removed if you don't want them, and you can always put them back by right-clicking on the graph and typing things like event tick, and it's going to bring up this. If I click it, it's going to bring up the one that we already have. If I delete it and click it again, it's going to put it back on here. Then we have a functions section over here on the right, or I mean on the left. This is for creating functions. If you already know what functions are, then you probably know what I'm talking about. You can override functions by clicking here. If this specific actor class has, or whatever class it is, if you make a special class and you create functions in it, you can override those here. They're going to probably show up here. Especially if they're C++ classes, and even if they're blueprint classes, you can have them be overridden. So then there's that, and then there's another section called macros, which I'll go over at another time, and variables, which is what I wanted to mostly talk about in this video at the end here. So variables are your basic thing. That's the data. That's the raw information that you move around, that you use, references, integers, floats, things like that. If you're not familiar with programming, then we kind of do this little show off this little thing for you here. So basically, we're going to close this. I'm going to close that blueprint, and I'm going to show you my other blueprint that I had already set up. So down here is a simple blueprint setup of variables where I created one of each type of basic variable. And in order to do this, you would create the new variable, and then here you can click on the variable itself, and you can click on any of these if you want one of these specific ones. These are the base variables, basic types of variables. And then if you need something more specific, there's structures, there's interfaces, which are things I'll go over later. Object types. Object types is pretty much any actor, any component, any reference, anything. Anything in the editor that you can find, like a texture, things like that are all going to be in here. And there's lots and lots of stuff. Cameras, all kinds of stuff is in there, right? Those are all that. So then you've got you've got the ability to set and get each one. So I'm gonna go over the actually what these are in the next video, but for this, just kind of you can kind of see that there's basically a set and a get. This allows you to get something and then you could set it if you wanted to, or you could add to an integer. Here you could add to an integer and then you could set it. So you could do something like that, and that allows you to set values. So in the next video, I'm going to go over all of the different ones and what they are.